This is Jay Michaels, and I'm a professor at two universities in New York. And why am I saying that? I've had a plethora of guests who share that occupation with me. And many of them are over at Theater for the New City. And I'm really impressed with that because the quality of their work shows uh, 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 that they have such academic prowess. And I have another one. And the conversations that I've had with Professor Eric Robinson have been incredible. They have been enlightening. He is a brilliant man, and I can't wait to find out more about his equally brilliant play. Professor Robinson, it is good to finally meet you in the cyber flesh. How are you?
Jay Michaels, I could give you a kiss, but my lips don't smack like that.
There you go. Well, it'd be a cyber kiss.
It'll be a cyber kiss with the mask on.
That's just fine. That's just fine.
I'm fine. I'm fine. Thank you. Otherwise, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I love the heat, so I have no problem with New York's weather at the moment. But that's
the heat is appropriate because my play SOLEDAD takes place during Holy Week in May 1934, and for the actors in the play and characters in the play, it can't get any hotter because this is the week before they go to the electric chair. So
wow. Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Tell us about.
You can't get hotter than the electric chair. I'm sorry.
So I'm told. May I never find out. Now, this is the second time we've essentially worked together. I worked with you at the Downtown Urban Arts Festival. You had a project going up there. I think it was in 2015.
That's correct.
This very literate man. Your subject matter is very deep and powerful. Tell us about you as a playwright.
I don't know what I can say because
tell us about your work.
That's a long this is a red letter day, Jay, because you got me absolutely speechless. And there have been people have been trying for 56 years and 10 months to get me speechless, and it hasn't worked. And here you are off the bat. You do this. The play that I've done at Downtown Urban Arts Festival, right? There were actually two plays, and the director and stage manager for SOLEDAD, the play that's appearing at TNC, did those two plays as well. The first play, the one that we worked on, was Spades, which took place in 1934. May 1934, in the apartment, the room of Langston Hughes, and it's set in the Harlem Renaissance about the time of the demise of a brilliant writer by the name of Walt Slerman. And the second play, which was done most recently in 2018, was The Strong Man, which was more fictional, but it takes place in Honea, South Carolina, as an aftermath of a race riot that had taken place some decades earlier, and this is again May 1934. Those plays honestly are part of history. There are elements in history. The Harlem Renaissance is an area of personal interest for me. I'm not a creative writer who steeps back in the Harlem Renaissance, so over the years, say as a student at Howard University, I heard a lot of stories about a variety of Harlem Renaissance writers and a variety of Harlem Renaissance thinkers. And one of the things that you benefit from in being at Howard University is get to walk around the university, and you go up to the third floor of the Founders Library and walk through the offices there and realize that these were the offices where Thurgood Marshall and William Hastie and Charles Houston planned their strategy to overturn Plessy versus Ferguson, which has this big start in 1936. And so if you were to talk about a year in which the world kind of changed for quite a few people, it would have been 1934, because in 1934 that was the year of the Scottsboro Boys case. And for the first time in the Scottsboro Boys case, you had an issue of a sexual assault allegation lodged against Black men in the case against white women that did not end in a lynching, but ended in a trial. And the trial was rigged. That's quite true. There was a railroad job. The two women involved were most likely prostitutes. The men included, or the males included prepubescent boys, and at least one man who himself was impotent. So, and they did not use DNA or any kind of objective analysis. However, it was a change. It was a significant difference. And so it coincides with what happens in later 1934 with the defeat of the Dreyer anti-lynching bill, and Charles Houston coming with the strategy, we'll overturn Plessy by going to the courts, because courts have the greatest possibility. And so what the play actually presents is this environment, that Soledad actually presents this environment in a time in which the world had changed, and it's a change for people's lives. How old are you, Jay?
I'm your contemporary. Let's just say that.
You're my contemporary?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm talking to another 14-year-old. Okay, good.
Mentally, why, yes, I pride myself as 12, so I'm going to take that as a
You're
compliment.
12? I can't talk to 12-year-olds. That gets me in trouble. Your mother's going to come and get you.
Oh, yeah, 14-year-olds are fine. Sorry.
14-year-olds are fine. 12-year-olds, no, you can't. And no 11-year-olds, 11 and 9-year-olds. No,
Nah, it doesn't work for me.
Well, at any rate, let's see, where was I going with this? I forgot. Never mind. You had another question.
I'd love to hear about the play. You've piqued my interest. You're talking about.
Yes, time of life. Okay,
historical
well, these are
trajectory.
during a time of life. These characters are during a time of life. And the time of life they're facing death, which is the same subject that surrounds both the play Spades and the Strongman. And they're talking about what's it like? What's the end like? And the second act actually presents the end, in which two characters who were nemesis are in heaven, and they're sharing a meal. I think most of us are familiar with the 23rd Psalms, and we forget the line in it, I believe, that says, "Thou setst a table before my enemies, and I died." Well, these are people who are sitting before their enemies and dining. And it's something that I stopped to think about, because I'm realizing that I'm 14 and I probably won't make it to 28. I probably won't have another 14 years left, and you start putting things in order. And one of the things one puts in order when you get to look a certain way, and sound a certain way and have certain things, one of the things that you put in order is, can I approach eternity with a clean conscience?
You basically, and it's funny you're talking about the 1930s, because my favorite author of that time period was Elmer Rice.
Mm-hmm.
And in The Adding Machine, the last act of his play, basically I'll say the protagonist, even though I'll say the anti-hero of The Adding Machine, he's now in heaven, and we get a very existential view of heaven, as opposed, thanks to Mr. Rice, where essentially, yes, he meets his enemies up in heaven as well. That's a very interesting thing. Now you're talking about your own demise, as you're looking at your own demise like that. I think
probably will happen after I turn 30.
I think you'll go another 14 years easily.
Yeah.
That's just me. But there's a very strong undercurrent of racism in your works, of oppression. This is obviously something that weighs on your mind. Yes?
No, that's not it. That's not it. That exists because only the characters are Negro.
Really?
And only because the characters are Negro. Mm-hmm. Because if you notice, what a person, you got to go to the play, ladies and gentlemen. You got to go to the play and ask yourself, what did these people do to go to prison? Now, when you go to the play and ask, what do these people do to go to prison? When you see it the second time, ask yourself the question, what does anybody do to be in prison? Then when you go the third time, and you don't need to go to the play itself to go to the play a third time. When you go to the play the third time, stop and think, is everybody possibly imprisoned? The prison that is presented is Angola State Penitentiary in the first act. The play takes place in the colored chapel. And they used to have colored chapels back then. And they used to have white chapels. It's irrelevant. The prison, you might find, is just like heaven. It is here. It is here. How many people do we see that are imprisoned? And how many people do we see go to heaven? That's probably something that I do share with Elmer Rice. Because in Elmer Rice's work, such as in The Ag Machine, as you pointed out, it's actually the state of mind. It's not necessarily a real corporal place. So here we are, people who are going through the process of their end. They're in prison. Then they're liberated at the end. They realize they're at the end. The person who made me think about this is a person to whom the play is dedicated. His name was A.G. Magus. He was a Pentecostal minister who was of Greek Orthodox background, who was raised in the Catholic Church, who got associated with the Azusa Street movement. And he understood that the beauty of faith is that anybody can be redeemed, especially those of us despised for our sins. Well, ideas of monotheism, all of the monotheistic religions talk about the idea that we have sinned against our human beings, our fellow human beings, but our real sins are here in our mind against the divine. Jay, are you going to see the play?
Of course I am. That's beside the point.
You're going to see it 3 times?
Congratulations. The amount of people that tried to render you speechless, that's nothing compared to those who've tried to render me speechless, and you have done so. The amount of brilliant thoughts that you have just given in these few minutes is really incredible. Firstly, you're an excellent marketing person. Come see the play 3 times. Brilliant.
Well, yeah. Well, I everything that I do, I have at least a third of the people see it 3 times.
You made a comment about now I made an almost feeble comment about racism, because that's the knee jerk that one thinks when you hear about someone in prison and why they're there, as you really very aptly put. But it's not a parable about, just as like it's not like we've sinned against a human being, we've sinned against our thoughts. Mm-hmm. We've sinned against what we consider our respect to the deities. You're saying the same thing there. This is not about racism. That's what the world was. If you African American, then okay, there was that level of oppression. It's almost like you're enhancing it by making it almost insignificant to the plot itself.
Well, just as it's insignificant to talk about, say, homophobia, it has gay characters. And if a person is familiar roughly with my work, going back to my appearance in fiction and Men on Men 6 back in 1996, I've written gay fiction. That's neither here nor there, mm-hmm. as far as the concept of this play or understanding this play is concerned. What's more important is play what, and we have to talk about what's theater here, because theater is not just something that happens in the eyes, it happens behind the eyes.
Yes. Yes.
That's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, between film and television and theater. Theater happens in the mind. And I want to engage that mind to start thinking, asking the questions, how are people redeemed?
Happily, I think some film and television are trying to break into the theatrical mindset that you're talking about, but I must agree with you.
Well, unfortunately,
idea
too much
of
theater has gotten into television and film.
Thank you. Well put. I was thinking of a clever way of putting it. You beat me to that. You bring up the thing about a prison of our own mind. Now, again, the second act of your play takes place in Heaven's Kitchen.
Not just in Heaven's Kitchen, in the colored kitchen in heaven.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
And like they say, the Southern and this is 1934. Okay, so when I talk about the Southern Democrats, I'm not talking about Jimmy Carter's party. I'm talking about Andrew Jackson's party.
right.
Okay, I'm talking about Ted Bilbo's party. When they say in the play, when the steward says in the play, oh, they all got to be spooks here, so the Southern Democrats can't say nothing about it.
You're giving us this whole concept about this the segregation that people feel as essentially it's something that starts within our minds. That seems to be the main prison that we're in. It's what we decide to put into our minds as the obstacles we have.
Are not the images of our minds the most real images for us?
Oh,
Is that not true?
completely.
Is it not true that UFOs exist because people believe in their minds in UFOs?
Everything exists because people believe it in their minds.
Yes.
It starts there, and even reality itself, even what we see in terms all around us, what you see in front of you, it could be the same image I'm seeing, but it's two separate images because
It's two separate images. It's two separate images that play in the mind. I can show an image of a person. I can transmit an image of a person that is so warped from the reality of the person that it's the image that's important. It's not what I am that's important. It's what I seem to be. And here are people who are living in a reality of prison because it seems to be prison. Queenie is suffering from being in prison in the play SOLEDAD's first act because it is real for him. You look at brothers, I'm chilled. That's gotta go. Yeah, that's the end. So what? Oh, big what? His mind is settled. He's calm. And so what happens to those of us as we move from 14 to 15 is we move beyond the image, the realities that we see with our eyes, into the realities that we see with our minds. And we don't think as a child. We don't understand as a child. But we become adults, so we put away those childish things.
But the realities
change.
that we then hand ourselves are based on what is taught to us.
In a way.
So
But who teaches whom?
There's a great irony.
Who teaches whom?
But like, so those of you those people in your life who taught you life, and those in my life who've taught me life, they have formed what we see in front of us. There's my favorite play in the world, Hamlet, talks about the prison of the mind. It talks about Hamlet even says, "I know not what seems." So we've heard that countless times, but you're really rooting it in something very powerful right now in this play.
Well, you mentioned Hamlet, and of course you're well aware of the type of arguments that existed about that actor from Stratford-on-Avon.
Yeah.
How the, and then you're like, Marla, how the heck can he, a Catholic in Tudor England, know about politics? He knows little Latin and less Greek. But the reality is, if we believe that an artist can come completely of his own, completely ill-defined by anything else, and can use imagination, he can create anything. How in the world can we explain Richard Wagner? We can't. Not as a, not, we can't explain him as a musician. We can't explain him as a theater artist. We can explain him as an asshole, and pardon my French, and a shit. And I can't say that on your program. Too bad. I just said it.
Can. Yes, you can.
We can explain him as a Nazi. We can't explain him as an artist.
Oh, that's brilliantly put. Oh my gosh, that's brilliantly put. How many times
Can we explain? Can we explain people still being imprisoned, even though they are free? Can we explain people still being enslaved, even though emancipation happened in 1865 or 1863 or 1917 or 1970? How can we explain that?
Because here's where the prison is.
The prison is here. This is where slavery is. This is here. This is here. And some of the great artists tried to get into that mind. Talk about slavery. I'm an Underground Railroad specialist when I speak to my groups, and sometimes I talk. The story of Huckleberry Finn is very real, because a lot of it is based on reality of the Mississippi region.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to explain to people, well, that character Jim is actually one of the most complicated Negro characters a white man has ever created, because he might be enslaved and he might sound duh, 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 but he actually has a mind, and the mind is liberated. So if the mind is liberated, is there any way that anybody can enslave me? No. That's why they did not teach the slave to read, because it freed the mind. Well, don't teach a person to be independent, some people argue, because he won't be out of prison. Don't teach a person to love and forgive, because they might be in heaven. You ever thought about that? How many of our monotheistic faiths, our advocates, actually talk about forgiveness, actually talk about loving
and mean it,
our enemies? How many of us actually emphasize, thou settest a table for me before my enemies, and I will dine with them? They don't say that. Perhaps they will. Of course, if they see the play 3 times.
You bring up so many interesting points that are very timely today. When you're talking about Wagner, how many times do we talk about when we find out the life of a great artist is anything but legal, and suddenly do we still listen to their music? That's what cancel culture is. Do we still listen to their music? Do we still watch them perform, even though they said or did something that goes against what puts us in our prisons?
Yeah. Eventually, people are going to find out things about me. Good luck to them. They're going to find out that I'm as human as anybody else. And as Shakespeare says in Julius Caesar, your flesh and blood and apprehensive. They're going to find that out about me.
Say yucca yucca? I don't remember.
And they're going to find that out about me. They're going to find out about you. We find this out about everybody.
Oh, I hope so. I hope they
Okay.
find out juicy details. I'd like to know. I
Find
had
out these juicy details, and yeah,
okay.
if you believe that makes a person less of a person, then they probably were less of a person when you started talking about it.
Last question I'm going to ask you, and
Go,
believe
baby.
me, it's just because of time, because I sit here with you for hours because this is brilliant. You make a point many times that we've spoken. You made a point about talking about light being a character in
Yes.
this. What should the audience expect from this light that this play talks about?
See light differently. Light is a character in my plays. It always is a character in my plays. See light differently.
Light
When
euphemistically, light
when
actually.
stained glass was first introduced to the Gothic churches, it changed the views of Western Christianity about light. Light is a metaphor. The play, by the way, will appear at Theater for the New City, August 28th through September 7th. It's generally speaking evening shows. There are a couple of matinees, and believe it or not, you will see it 3 times. You'll see it twice in stage, and once when you're walking down, going to the subway on your way to work after Labor Day, and you're going to think, "Oh, that's what he meant."
Oh, that's great. You already did it for me. I loved your euphemism when you said stained glass changed our views.
Yeah.
Of course, our views through the glass. So we have and it goes to what you're saying, the reality, as well as the euphemism, as well as the cerebral content of it. Wow.
I do have to say this. I might have scared some people because it sounds like a heavy play. It's not. It's not a heavy play. I want people to be happy for at least one of the characters. At least one of the characters should make you happy. I hope they do. I don't like sad plays. Sad plays make me sleep. And this play did not make me sleep.
I get the idea there's humor in this. I get the idea you've laced this. This is a dramedy on some level.
Oh, wait until they talk about Charlie's Ice. Charlie's Ice being all washed up. I'm just waiting for somebody to hear that.
Wow.
But I want you to enjoy it, please.
For sure.
Please.
And I know I will, and I know everyone out there will. Ladies and gentlemen, look on Channel I for all information regarding the play. The cast is going to be announced shortly. I will make sure everyone has the address of the theater, as well as the email address and the web address for tickets. The play again is called Soledad, and the author is Professor Eric Robinson, and oh, he's so brilliant. I could just imagine how brilliant this play is going to be. Eric, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to speak to you. I look forward to chatting with your cast. I look forward to chatting with you again, and we will definitely have subsequent interviews once they're in place and the show is getting ready.
I look forward to that, Jay.
Thank
Keep
you.
New York warm.
Yeah, I'll have no trouble with that.
Not as warm as London, but keep it warm.
I hear you. And here's to celebrating being 14 again.
Yeah.
See you at the theater.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.